and network. Information systems essentially consist of the hardware, softwares, the procedures, programs, and network essentially is an interconnection of two or more computers to share resources and to facilitate communication. Yeah, let's go to our next slide, please. Cybersecurity is security of information system, and what cybersecurity, of course, is protecting critical system against attacks. So I'll use an example. In our homes, we have physical measures to prevent any form of attacks or to prevent any intruder from gaining access into our private homes. So with computing systems, cybersecurity is very important to ensure that our systems, our networks, today we have Internet of Things, which are essentially smart devices, are protected and secured against any form of attack or third-party threat. So cybersecurity, cyber and security put together is essentially, from our slide, security of information system and network in the face of attacks, accident, and failures, with the goal of protecting operations and critical assets. Now, when we talk about protecting systems and networks in the face of attacks, we don't just protect, or we don't just secure systems and network against attacks. We also need to secure systems and networks against attacks in the face of failures, with the goal of protecting critical assets. So a couple of weeks ago, I was going through a report of a cyber attack, of an attack incident that took place in the United States, where you had this model of Ford, which runs an IoT in the controlling system, and it was so unfortunate that the security professionals that built the Internet of Things failed to install the necessary patches. So patches in cybersecurity are updates. For instance, in your iPhones, you have software updates. We're going to come back to that later. But this security expert failed to install the necessary patches in the smart vehicle. And as a result, a specific group of cyber attackers were obviously finding a way to exploit this vulnerability or this weakness as they conducted penetration testing. So penetration testing is a way or a process that is used by both ethical and illegitimate hackers to identify vulnerabilities, weaknesses, loopholes to exploit our systems. So this group of attackers found that there was a vulnerability in that Ford vehicle, and they exploited the controlling system, which is the steering. And as a result of the successful exploitation, they were able to control every model of that vehicle. And these exposed that Ford model to cyber-related threats. Now, in such an incident, you're definitely going to lose a lot of customers, clients, business partners. Also, there will be financial losses associated to such incidents. So this is why cybersecurity is essential not just to protect these assets against attacks, but to also ensure that any form of financial losses or reputational losses are being protected. Next slide, please. So what does cybersecurity mean to me? Now, cybersecurity means that everyone who uses a computer, mobile device, or smart device needs to understand how to keep their computer device and data secure. So essentially, what we are discussing here, or what's been discussed in this slide, is cybersecurity is not the responsibility of a cybersecurity professional like me, or a cybersecurity professional in Google, a cybersecurity professional in Darktrace, or in any of the top 3 consulting firms, or any cybersecurity startup. No, it's the responsibility of you as an individual. You have mobile phones, you have smart devices installed in your home to automate your home and to make things easier, to enable you to perform your day-to-day activities very easy and faster. You have all these devices, and you are expected to at least have the basic knowledge on how to protect yourself from cyber-related risk. So cybersecurity is the responsibility of every individual. At least you should be skilled enough to protect yourself from cyber-related threats. Let's go to the next slide, please. Before I discuss what is being covered in this slide, I want to let you know that you can stop me at any point to ask questions. So you can stop me to ask me questions. I like it when you have questions. But for the purpose of this lesson, I think it might be better you just write your questions somewhere so that you can ask me later. Also, if you can write your questions and ask me later, it will be very important. Yeah. So what are the goals? What are the goals of cybersecurity? So the goals of cybersecurity are availability, integrity, and confidentiality. So we have 3 essential goals: availability, integrity, and confidentiality. So what is availability, or what does the availability goal aims to achieve? Sorry, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Marvelous is unmuted. Let's mute him. You can go on now, sir.
Okay, I'll go on. Thank you very much. So the goals of cybersecurity is availability, integrity, and confidentiality. What is availability? So availability ensures that is that cybersecurity goal which ensures that data is made available to authorized users. When we talk about authorized users, we are talking about legitimate users. So for instance, you are accessing in the UK, we use different teaching platforms such as Blackboard Collaborate, Moodle, and Canvas. In these teaching platforms, we have our lecture notes, we have our lab resources, we also have our exams. In these platforms, we have our assessment, our quizzes, we have everything stored on this platform. However, we have different security mechanisms that have been embedded and incorporated into the design of Blackboard Collaborate, which is one of the tools, to ensure that this tool is made available and accessible to us whenever we need to make use of this tool. So that is what the availability goal in cybersecurity aims to achieve. It enables resources and data accessibility to authorized and legitimate users whenever they need it. So whenever you need to access these resources and data, it should be made available to you as long as you are the legitimate, you are a legitimate user as long as you have access to data. Integrity. Integrity is the goal of cybersecurity that ensures that data that is sent from a source to a destination remains unaltered and not modified. So when you send the data from a specific source to another source, there shouldn't be any form of alteration. You shouldn't alter any aspect or any part of the data. Why confidentiality is the last goal of cybersecurity that focuses on secrecy. So when data is sent from point A to point B, data should be made secret. The data should be secured. It should be encrypted. So we're going to look at encryption later. But encryption is one of the mechanisms we use to ensure confidentiality. Let's go to the next slide, please. I'll answer all your questions. Don't worry. Later. So yeah, so confidentiality, keeping sensitive information private. Integrity ensures that system has not suffered any modification. And the last one ensures availability of data. Let's go to our next slide. So confidentiality, we already explained what confidentiality is. We said it means secrecy. Some security controls that we can use to ensure confidentiality includes use of strong passwords. This has become a mandatory requirement, especially for your social media applications and some websites and resources you access online. When you create, even with your mobile banking application, you are expected to create very complex passwords. Why? This is because your private data is being stored on such applications, and as a result, you need strong passwords to make it difficult for potential attackers to exploit your data or resources, even if they gain access to your network or computing device. How about encryption? Encryption is a technique where you hide that. It's a technique for data hiding. So it's a technique where you hide data. You hide data using keys. So the keys here we are talking about are essentially mathematical. Yeah, they are generated and created using mathematical functions. So these are not the normal keys you use in opening doors, your doors, or the keys used in opening your cars. So these are mathematical functions, mathematical algorithms you use to hide data. So for instance, I'm going to use my research as an example. In completing my research, I had to develop 3 different encryption techniques using machine deep and federated learning to secure the privacy of Internet of Things. Let's go to the next slide. Integrity. So we talked about integrity previously, and then some of the techniques or control measures we can use to ensure integrity includes hashing, data access control, and input control. So hashing essentially is a unique identifier for any device that is created for any device stored on your file. So at some point in time, I think in my master's, during my master's program, I used different hashing algorithms and different hashing tools to create hashes for files stored on a specific device I was using for pen testing at that time, because I wanted to ensure that the files remain secure and no any form of modification or unauthorized alteration have been applied by any individual to access my file. So I used hashing. So when you create hashes, you store them in a secure location or a secure place, and you can always use the hashes you've stored to verify if your data or your file has been tampered in the future. Another technique is data access controls and input controls. So data access controls, essentially specifying controls on role basis. For instance, you specify access to data based on roles of individuals in the organization. So there are specific files and folders and applications that should only be accessible or used by senior level executives. And there are some files and folders that should only be used by regular employees and as well as administrators. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, availability. So availability, we already talked about, is making data accessible for legitimate and authorized individuals. So some of the security controls for availability includes software and data backups, failover configurations, and rollback functions. So we all know about backups. Backups are very important because in order to make files or in order to make your data available, if any potential incident or attack occurs, you need to ensure you have a backup so that you can restore as soon as you can to keep the business running smoothly. So one of the goals of cybersecurity, which is not mentioned today, is to ensure that our business continues, or business continuity and disaster recovery. And in business continuity, data backups is essential. So if anything happens, we have a restore site somewhere, or we have a recovery point somewhere to restore and roll back our operations. Let's go to the next slide, please. So another way to think of cybersecurity is the availability, integrity, and secrecy of information system and network in the face of attacks, accident, and failures, with the goal of protecting operations and critical assets. What we did here is we've been able to understand the three essential goals of cybersecurity. So we use the three essential and important goals to properly define and explain the cybersecurity concept. So we said availability, integrity, confidentiality, which we also said is secrecy. So we now have a very comprehensive definition of cybersecurity, which covers all the goals to ensure that no goal or no stone is left untouched. Let's go to the next slide, please. Security definition. So in order to understand cybersecurity, very important concept that we should know: vulnerability, threat, risk, exposure, and control. So let's begin with the first one, vulnerability. Let's go to the next slide, please. So vulnerability is essentially a weakness in a system. So if you go to bed without shutting your door at night, it means you're vulnerable to be attacked by bandits or anybody, especially in Nigeria. So vulnerability is when your system is vulnerable, or when your network is vulnerable, when it's exposed to security risk, when you're exposed and when you can be attacked by any third party. So that's a vulnerability. And an example in computing, an open port on a firewall. I'll use a scenario to explain these open port on a firewall. So in 2017, I've been in the UK for a very long time, but there was an attack that happened in the UK in 2017. It was targeted to the National Health System, also known as the NHS. So the NHS in the United Kingdom faced an attack called Ransomware WannaCry attack. So what happened with Ransomware WannaCry attack was, at that time, the United Kingdom, the National Health System, on NHS, which is also known as NHS, we are still running a Windows XP on their servers. It was very embarrassing to figure out that the NHS in 2017 we are running a Windows XP server, and for some reasons, Microsoft stopped releasing patches, which I mentioned when I started. Patches are also known as updates. Microsoft stopped releasing patches for legacy operating systems. Legacy operating systems are essentially older versions of Windows operating system or any type of operating system. So Microsoft stopped releasing patches at that time, and the NHS was still running in XP. So a specific group of attackers targeted the vulnerability in a specific network port called SMB. So SMB port at the XP server at that time had a flaw where attackers could launch an attack and hijack our data. So a port is a gateway to a network. So it's like the door. It's like the door to your house. So a port is a gateway. It's like an entry point to a network. So they exploited the vulnerability in that port. And as a result, these attackers hijacked databases. They hijacked several databases across 2,000 NHS trusts. So they hijacked so much data, and they requested for millions of pounds to be paid, also known as ransom, in order for the data to be released to the users, or to the NHS. And the NHS at that time, or the NHS that we know, have always tried to implement measures to secure the privacy or private data of patients they store. So they had to pay millions in order for this data to be released. So they paid so much money, and as soon as the money was paid, the ransom was paid, they had to upgrade the servers to the latest version, which was Windows 10 at that time. So whenever you see, for those of us still using iPhone 6, iPhone X, by now we should be aware that we are exposing our mobile phones to security vulnerabilities, because based on my understanding, I know that Apple has stopped releasing software patches for these versions of or these specific versions of iPhones, and you are currently at risk. So if you have your mobile bank apps running on these mobile phones that I mentioned, you are at a risk. You're exposing yourself to risk because there are no update or no security updates to secure your phone. Please, let's go to the next slide. A threat. So remember we said the vulnerability is a loophole, a weakness in a system. A threat is that entity that takes advantage of a vulnerability. So you could decide to go to bed without shutting your door. However, if a thief or a bandit exploits the vulnerability, if a thief or a bandit is aware that your door is not closed and gains access into your home or the building, that person or that entity is a threat. So a threat could be an intruder accessing the network through a port on a firewall, or an employee. Even within an organization, you can have an employee, a disgruntled employee, that could take advantage of the weaknesses in the network or systems in the organization. Next slide, please. Risk. So now we said a vulnerability is a weakness. A threat takes advantage of a vulnerability. Now, what is a risk? So, assuming a threat takes advantage of a vulnerability, the resulting outcome is going to be a risk. So the risk here is a possibility of a threat exploiting a vulnerability and the business impact. So a threat exploiting a vulnerability and the business impact. The business impact could be financial losses, reputational losses. So it's not just the possibility, but also the business impact has to be considered. For example, if users are not educated on procedures and processes, there is a higher likelihood that an employee will make a mistake that may destroy data. In my place of work and in everywhere in the UK, we have security awareness training where employees are always trained on how to keep themselves safe. We receive training on phishing attacks. Even though we teach cybersecurity to students, we still have to complete phishing exercises to ensure that we do not fall victims or prey to cyber attackers and scammers online. Next slide, please. Exposure. So, assuming the risk or assuming a threat exploits a vulnerability, yeah, and we have some business impact such as financial losses and reputational damages. And an exposure is that instance where the business is exposed to losses. So these losses could be in terms of money and in terms of other things. Let's look at an example. If a password management is lax and password use are not enforced, the company is exposed to having users' password compromised and used in an unauthorized manner. So I'll give an example, a very real life example. So 4 years ago, when I started teaching, I was teaching ethical hacking and digital forensics to level 6, which is third year students at the university. And during one of our classes, I took them through some Internet of Things that I was using in my research at that time that had security flaws that were manufactured by some companies in China. Now, those Internet of Things applications had vulnerabilities which could allow attackers to keep track of every activity happening in the homes of users, in the homes of any potential user who installs that camera in their home. So it was a serious security flaw. So I took my students through that security camera. It wasn't a CCTV, but it was one of those security cameras developed in China, and it had a major security flaw. Besides having a flaw in the password rules, you could also the device could also send forward traffic to a specific website, keeping or putting the potential users at risk. And from our class, we could essentially see we selected one of the device to just explain the risk associated in class. So I was able to show the student how a person's home is exposed. We could see the camera installed outside their home, how we could see their flowers, their surroundings. So these are some of the issues connected to exposure. Let's go to the next slide, please. Control. So control is a mechanism or is a technique that we can use to prevent or detect attacks from occurring. So strong password management. Some website I previously mentioned, some website will ensure you create a very complex password. Firewalls, also very important. Firewalls are a set of rules that blocks any form of malicious traffic from entering or leaving a specific network or system. And we have intrusion prevention system. What intrusion prevention system does is essentially prevent attacks from happening. And then we have IDS, which detects intrusion. Then we have access control mechanisms. So access control mechanisms dictate who gains access or who is prevented access. And then security awareness training, it never ends. It's a continuous process to ensure that every individual, every employee gains the minimum set of knowledge and skill to protect themselves from falling victims to cyber-related risk. Next slide, please. The different aspects of cybersecurity. Now, before we discuss this specific section or this session, I would like to also talk about the jobs that are related to, or the jobs that are linked to these roles. So net security is also known as penetration testing or ethical hacking. So this is an aspect of cybersecurity that essentially focuses on protecting the network infrastructures from any form of threat. So when you go online after our meeting today, I'll advise you to use some of these job sites and job and career sites like LinkedIn and Indeed, GradCracker. I don't know the ones we have in Nigeria, but just search for network security. Search for each of these aspects of cybersecurity, and you see the specific roles. So with network security, you can either be an ethical hacker or a network security specialist, or you can also be a network security investigator. So we have what we call red team, we have what we call blue team, we have what we call purple team. These are different aspects of ethical hacking. So with red team, they are the attackers. They launch attacks to systems just to check if systems are vulnerable or not. And they do these legitimately. So we call them red teams or red teamers. So there are several roles and jobs for red teamers. Red teaming in cybersecurity is one of the most lucrative areas. It is very lucrative. Remote roles in red team are very high paying. For instance, you could, for entry level positions in red team, you could earn at least 60 to 70,000 pounds. It's a lot of money. And then when you get to associate level with 2 to 3 years experience, red team, you could earn 6-figure salary, 100 to 120K. And some organizations even pay you per day. I was with one of my colleagues who is supposed to be taking the other part of this lecture today, but he's not here. So I was with one of my colleagues the other day, and someone reached out to him for a role of about 700 pounds per day. So these are some of the opportunities that are available for red team. You have so much opportunities and very high paying jobs. And also with blue team, still under network security or ethical hackers, blue team implement the defensive measures. So red team check for weaknesses or analyze weaknesses, while the blue team secure the systems. And then you have purple team. Purple team recommend control measures. So network security, take home for today. Network security, one of the take home for today. Network security is also known as ethical hacking, penetration testing, and under network security or under ethical hacking, you have red, blue, and purple team. All these different areas of network security have very high paying jobs. As a matter of fact, I would say that network security is an area that has more jobs compared to other areas. Application security. Application security is essentially protecting or keeping applications and its resources from attacks. So when you talk of application security, you talk about web applications, you talk about mobile applications. For instance, in cybersecurity, there's what we call OWASP top 10. OWASP top 10 are the top 10 vulnerabilities we have today. This includes SQL injection, cross-site scripting. When you go deep into cybersecurity, you get to know about these things and these areas. So these are some of the top web vulnerabilities we have. So application security is an area of cybersecurity that aims to address some of the top 10 security vulnerabilities we have on both web and applications. And when you talk of cloud security essentially deals with protecting cloud infrastructures. Today we have different companies that are transitioning or moving to the cloud. So you have companies that are providing cloud infrastructures as a service. This includes Amazon Web Service, you have Google, and you have Microsoft Azure. So these are the three main cloud services we have. And while our company data, backup, and very critical resources are being stored on the cloud, they also need to be protected against any form of risk or threat. So cloud security, I know I did mention that network security is one of the most lucrative areas in cybersecurity, but cloud security is next to network security, considering how most organizations are now transitioning into cloud. And with cloud security, for instance, it's very essential today that in today's job market, you don't just have the cloud security skills, but you also need to know how to use at least one of the cloud services, such as the ones I mentioned, AWS, Google Cloud Practitioner, or Microsoft Azure. So if you're applying to cybersecurity jobs in cloud security, it is very important you have one of the certifications in this area. For instance, one of the most popular cybersecurity cloud certification is Amazon Web Service Cloud Solution Associate or Cloud Solution Professional. It's very important you have one of these certifications. And with one of these certifications in a cloud security role, you should be earning between 70 to 80,000 base salary for your first year. So cloud security is very, very lucrative as well. And then when we go to risk management is essentially controlling risk to an acceptable level for an organization. So in every organization, you cannot completely eliminate risk, or you can limit, or you can reduce the risk to a certain level, but you cannot eliminate risk completely. So risk management aims to help organizations to reduce risk. So in order to achieve this, you can either use a qualitative or a quantitative approach. And with digital forensics, this is an area which I specialized in. So this is one of the things I love to talk about. So digital forensics is that aspect of cybersecurity that aims to investigate security breaches and attacks and extract every evidence that can be used to prosecute cyber criminals or attackers in the law court. So remember we talked about penetration testing, network security, hacking, how you exploit, how you defend. So digital forensics is it's not a proactive approach, but it's rather a reactive approach. It's how you react after everything happens or after everything has occurred. So there was an attack in this organization, there was an attack in that in another organization. So digital forensics is that area which aims to investigate all the security attacks or a specific security attack and extract every evidence. So in cybersecurity, we deal with fact, not just assumption. You analyze the hard drive, you analyze the memory, which is RAM, and you extract every evidence. In 2020, I was working as an intern for a cybersecurity company in central London. It was a 6-month internship, and I was their digital forensic analyst at that time. the nature of my job was to come to the office, analyze an attack incident using high level tools, and extract all the evidences that are needed to prosecute the criminals or to prosecute all the perpetrators. I work in a team. At some point, I led the team, but I had to work for, I think, about 4 to 5 months before I was able to lead the team for the last month. And sometimes it takes us months, 2 to 3 months to investigate an attack. Sometimes it takes us months to analyze the hard disk partitions alone before we even move into the RAM analysis. So the nature of a digital forensics analyst job is very complicated. Sometimes some cyber attackers make it difficult for us. They try to make it difficult for us to access the system because they use very complex encryption algorithms. And then it takes us weeks to be able to break into the encryption algorithms to access the resources and investigate the drive. So next is Internet of Things security. So today we have over 8 billions of devices, also known as IoTs. These are smart devices. These are smartphones, smart kettles. Today we have smart toilets, we have CCTV cameras, we have different smart devices that we currently use. We even have smart cars today. We have smart cars, self-driving cars. So these are examples of IoTs. These are all examples of IoT. Some are examples of IoTs and some are examples of industrial Internet of Things. So while these devices are currently being developed every day, we also need to ensure that we have the necessary security infrastructures that are in place to secure these systems against any form of attacks or breaches. So IoT security is growing very, very, very fast. In 2021, I received a total of £197,000 to conduct my research, my PhD research in IoT security. My PhD research is focused on IoT security. And even before I completed my program, I got contacted by King's College London if I wanted to do a postdoc in this area. There's so much money in IoT research, IoT vulnerabilities protection. There's so much money and there's so much opportunities currently in IoT research. As a matter of fact, there's about 50 new PhD scholarships that I just saw in this area for students to conduct research with very good funding, as well as some job opportunities. So this area is also growing. Okay, so let's run through the slides. We are going to, we've explained this concept. So I was able to, so let's go. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep moving. I've been able to explain. Let's keep going. Let's keep moving. Yeah. Yes, let's go. Let's go. Next. Let's go. Next one. Good. Let's go. Let's go to the next one as well. No. Go scroll back. Scroll down. No. Let's go to 40. I think 43. Let's go to 43. Let's go to 43. Let's see. Digital forensics. Sorry, let's go to 37. 37. Let's start from 37. Yeah. So digital forensics. So digital forensics is an emerging discipline in computer security. So investigation that takes place after an incident has happened. So it tries to answer the question who, what, when, where, why, and how. So these are the questions that digital forensics tends to answer. So while I know a lot of you might be interested in learning cybersecurity, I want to explore cybersecurity, I want to become a network security analyst, digital forensics is also a very lucrative area that even that has much more job opportunities compared to network security and cloud security. But the problem is, digital forensics is actually not a problem, but it's an area where so many people are trying to run away from because it's a very complicated discipline. So with digital forensics, you first of all need to understand how to use the tools. So you essentially have tools to investigate and you have tools to analyze evidences for uh, uh, prosecuting before you prosecute any criminals involved. So you need to learn how to use the tools. And in order to learn how to use the tools, it is very, very important that you also have certain skills, which is Python. I know I haven't mentioned any programming since we started discussing, but Python is very important in cybersecurity. You don't need to go deep into Python. You just need to understand a few libraries in Python for cybersecurity. So I know some of you here have questions like, oh, how am I going to know cybersecurity, or how will I jump into cybersecurity since I don't have a programming background, I don't have strong coding skills, I don't have this, I don't have that. Personally, I have very good programming skills and I have very good coding skills, but I'll tell you nothing but the truth. You do not need a very high level coding skills to learn cybersecurity. I have friends that moved from business. I have friends that studied law in their first degree. I have friends that never even studied anything close to cybersecurity, and they got into the UK masters, started their masters, and I have friends that also learned cybersecurity on their own without using any without having any stronger Python skills, and they were able to thrive. They were able to get jobs. They were able to get internships. And the good thing about cybersecurity is you don't even need to apply to jobs. You don't need to wait until you finish learning before you apply to jobs. In the process of learning, you can make money. You can earn so much money in the process of learning. You have hackathons. You have cybersecurity research companies, you have internship opportunities. So many companies in the UK. This is something I'm even going to discuss with you next week. In our session next week, there are several internship opportunities. There are several opportunities that you can actually leverage in the process of learning. You don't have to wait. Oh, I want to wait until I finish, or how long does it take? I want to learn something. No, you don't have to wait. As long as you're committed to learning, as long as you're focused, trust me, you're going to start earning money within the 3 months of your learning. It all depends on you. Depends on how much time you put, and it depends on how much work. While while I was in Nigeria, I started learning while I was in Nigeria, and a few months later, I got an internship. It was through an internship that I came to the UK. So I came to the UK to study through an internship, which I did while learning cybersecurity from an online platform like this in Nigeria. So you don't need to have very strong coding skills, and you don't know. You can learn. You just need to learn a bit of Python, and it's not any advanced programming. It's just basics. The only library you need to learn cybersecurity in Python is Impacket. That's all. And then you start. Other things you need to learn is how to use Linux. And in using Linux, I can take you the basics, how to use Linux, how to navigate your way through Linux. Linux is very easy. It's not difficult. I know these platforms or these languages are not may not be familiar to some of you, but trust me, learning cybersecurity is so easy. It's easy. It all depends on how much time you're going to spend, on how much resources you're also willing to pay. Because of course, learning cybersecurity it requires you to invest, but it's one of those investments which you never regret. I have a friend. I have a friend that's currently working in Nigeria. I can even invite him if after speaking to Adewale later, I can invite him. He works in Nigeria. He's doing a remote job here in a remote job in the UK. He's been working since before COVID started. The first job he got after learning cybersecurity was about £300 to £400, and then he kept on going. 3 years later, Frank, he currently earns £4,000, and he's in Nigeria. So he's doing very, very well in Nigeria. So this is one of those areas where you're definitely not going to you're not going to have any regret as long as you're willing to invest your time, invest your resources. Yeah. I think we're going to have a break now, and then I can continue later because I believe I've been able to give you too much of information, and let's have a break because I do this in my classes in the UK as well. Let's have a
I
break
have a
and
question,
yeah.
sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, please ask your question.
Yes, I really appreciate this, Mr. Daniel.
Yeah,
Uh, Hello.
yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, I'm very, very happy to meet you, sir.
Yeah, I'm also
Uh,
happy to meet you.
I yes, I studied. I have a master's in cybersecurity also, but I did mine in Nigeria.
Yes.
I'm very vast with this cybersecurity in terms of mobile security,
Yeah,
mobile application security, web application security, network
yeah,
security,
yeah,
cloud security. I did so many online courses about cybersecurity. I
yeah,
have a very good concept and background
yeah,
about cybersecurity, but
yeah.
what I'm seeking for now is practical skills.
Hands-on
The
skills.
practical skills in
Yeah,
yes, that's
yeah,
what I'm seeking for, and
yeah.
I'm really I the long I've been seeking for that. I think I just finished doing I mean an internship with Secure Sphere in India.
Okay.
I just finished with them by last year November December.
Yeah,
But I've not really gotten that practical skills I feel I should have.
yeah,
So I don't know if you can help me,
yeah,
if you can guide me in any way I
yeah,
can get that,
yeah,
because all these you are saying, absolutely they are correct,
yeah,
and I'm well informed about them already.
yeah, yeah. So
So I don't know if you can help out.
yeah. Uh Sorry, I didn't get your name again.
Yes, I'm Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Daniel. So,
Yes.
Mr. Daniel, thank you for sharing your concerns with me, and I'm glad you've been able to gain some theoretical knowledge. Yeah, and
Yes.
I'm excited you're willing to learn the practical and the hands-on cybersecurity uh aspect. Is very good. It's very good that the first thing you should focus on is to identify what area you want to specialize in. I know you mentioned that you've done some internships, especially with regards to mobile, yeah, application security and all. But it's very important that you decide on what area you want to specialize in. It's very important because with cybersecurity, I must tell you that with cybersecurity, if you say you want to learn everything, you're going to end up not learning anything. You understand? You end
Yeah.
up not learning anything. So for me personally, in the course of my learning experience, I was able to master network security and digital forensics. But I do a lot of digital forensics more than network security, and digital forensics is currently my area of focus. Although AI is something I also picked up. So I'm doing AI. I'm doing a lot of AI research, but digital forensics is one of my areas of specialty, and I believe if you can be able to identify that area or identify your focus point or your focus uh, area in cybersecurity, it will be very important we focus on that aspect when
Yes, I
when
have, sir.
yeah, yeah, when training and when
I
learning. Yeah.
yes,
Um,
I have. I want to be like I want to focus on penetration testing.
penetration testing. Okay. So
Yes,
with penetration testing, I promise you that I'll take you penetration testing, or I can take you penetration testing from the basics of penetration testing to the point where you feel very confident to exploit system. I have a website for testing. So I have this dummy website because it's illegal for you to launch attacks on a random website or
yes,
any website that doesn't belong to you. So I have this
yes,
dummy website I use for testing. So we start from the basics. We focus on hands-on. We start from the basics
yes,
of pen testing, and then I train you to the point whereby you're confident enough to work on different penetration testing projects such that you can upload them on GitHub. And then later, we go as far as applying to internships. You get what I mean? Applying to remote
yes,
internships, and yeah,
yes,
you could even for the first 3 to 4 months, you could start by doing a voluntary internship. You get what I mean?
yes,
You could start by
yes,
doing a voluntary internship. Voluntary internships are internship opportunities where they don't pay you money. But
yes,
the most important thing is
yes,
you need the skills to get to the top.
yes, yes,
You need the
yes,
experience. Exactly.
experience.
So that's the same way I started. My first internship in the UK, the first internship I took in Nigeria was unpaid. So and then the second one I
Yes,
later got another one which was paid, and that's how I got to the UK. But
yes,
I'll take you through ethical hacking. Yeah, I'll take you through ethical hacking. I'll start from
yes,
network network exploitation to web exploitation, pen testing, hacking network, hacking website, and also I'll take you through exploiting mobile phones. We'll look at Android and we'll look at iOS. I'll show you the things you can do with Android OS, and I'll show you the things you can do with iOS, as it has several very complex security infrastructure uh, embedded into. So I can
yes,
take you through all these stages, and I guarantee you that you're going to learn cybersecurity to the best of your ability. Yeah, and I can also I'll also not I can I'll also provide you with tools which
yes,
will cost you so much money if you want to purchase them. I'll give you those tools so that you can
okay,
use those tools to uh, test on your own, to practice on your own, and
yeah,
to get the expected result. But I'll also require you to do a lot of work. I'll also require
yeah,
you to do a lot of work, which is practicing. You practice. You practice. I practice every day. I practice every
yes,
day. I dedicate at least 3 to 4 hours. I teach on Mondays. I teach from 9 to 6. I teach from 9 to 6, and then I speak to so many other recruiters, always reaching out to me. We have this job, we have that job. I teach from 9 to 6, but as soon as I get home, I sleep, and then I wake up in the middle of the night to do some work. So on my fifth publication is in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity alongside some other professors and researchers in cybersecurity as well. So all I'm saying is you need to be working, you need to be reading, you need to be practicing, you need to keep on learning as well. So you don't stop. After I teach you,
yes,
you don't stop. Yeah, you also practice. And if you're very passionate
yes.
about it,
Presently,
you have to practice. Yeah, yeah.
Presently, I'm about applying for a course in UK.
Yeah.
I'm also happy that you are also there. So
I mean,
all this is
yeah.
for research.
I mean, it's
Is for
important to
research.
discuss. Yeah, it's important to discuss with Mr. Adewale. Discuss with Mr. Adewale about how you want care of all the discussions, and you communicate every aspect to me. So it's important to discuss with him. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So, sorry, I think the tutor mentioned I wanted to take a break. We have a lot of questions in the comment sections already, but
Okay.
it's already past
Uh,
1 hour.
yeah.
We're still gonna have a session next week, and I don't know. I will just communicate and get back to you. Some of the questions, I know it's a very busy person. Some can be answered and shared on the WhatsApp channel. Yeah, because I know a lot of people have questions. This session was quite interesting for someone like me in the software development space, right? I learned quite a lot, right? So it's a session that's regardless of your niche or your background, you must have learned something today, right? And that's why I'm sure we have a lot of curious people asking questions, right? Yeah. But if you want to take all the questions, we'll still be here till 9:30. All right. So we'll just compile some of those questions and we'll just communicate with him. Probably during his next session, you take time to address them. Then we'll also communicate with him, right? And get back to you. Right. That works, right?
Yeah, that works for me as well. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Adewale. Yeah, I'll
Yes.
try as much as possible to ensure I provide answers. I'll provide. I can see all the questions and I'll provide all the answers, and I'll answer them on the WhatsApp group. That's a promise. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was so glad to have him join us, right? I think we can just drop a clapping emoji because he's a very busy person, and to get him on the call today, he had to like make some sacrifices for you. And this is what he taught you today is what people are paying thousands of pounds for to get on a paid basis, right? And I believe there's still a lot to learn, as I said, right? But for him to spare time to talk to you, it's a lot, right? So I think you should just appreciate him for that. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And yeah, most definitely in the future we'll be bringing him in. Might be on a paid basis actually, but I don't know. You're gonna learn a lot from him. Yeah. So thank you so much. I think we're gonna end the session here. And as I said, see the questions we can answer and get back to you. See you guys next week. Thank you. And okay, the recorded session will be available. I can see a lot of people asking for slides. Don't worry, when we upload the video, you see the slides and watch. Yeah.
okay,
If
okay,
it's
sir.
open to change slides,
Please.
it's fine. But for now, we'll have to get back to you on that. So you'll be able to watch the recorded video once it's uploaded to
Okay,
YouTube.
thank you very much, sir. I was
Yeah.
have just a question. If I'm to study cybersecurity, which course should I go for?
If you are to study cybersecurity, where?
If I'm to study cybersecurity, which course should I go for?
Honestly, there are loads of courses you can go for when you want to study cybersecurity. But like I said, it's important you identify your motivation and your area of focus, so you don't end up wasting your time. I mean, like there's I know a lot of people that have been learning cybersecurity for over a year, and then even some of the students we teach, we give them a lot of information, and uh, some of them do have specific areas of focus where they want to specialize or where they want to master. So it's important because you find some information that may not be necessary for you. So try as much as possible and identify your area of focus first, and then I can guide you on what resources and what areas you should focus on. But to be very honest, I'll say speak to Mr. Dewale about it, and we can be able to discuss later.
Okay, so I can see. Thank you so much, boss.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, no worries.
Questions, main session as regarding not having access to the group. Yeah, the group is full, and that's because the campaign have been purposes for the campaign have been since the second week of January. So the group got full like last week. So we're working towards just send a DM or send an email or contact support via the phone number that was provided, right? If you are not on the cybersecurity channel, we can work something out for you, either through Telegram or just to ensure that you are carried along when some questions are answered or any questions relating to cybersecurity or any updates, right? But just watch out for the channels. As well as you're in other sessions, any important information that everybody should know about should be communicated via the community channels. Thank you so much once again to our tutor and to everyone that joined the session today. Look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good night rest.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you so much.